Today on Lockdown Red Wings, we're going to recap the weekend's games, and we're going to also talk about those Rookie of the Year candidates out of the SHL.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to the Lockdown Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty also hosts over at Locked On Tigers. Happy Easter, happy Passover to those who celebrate. Scotty, how's your Easter, buddy?
It was pretty good, man. I'm very tired and very full, but
I'm also very tired.
It's yeah. We're recording this on Sunday night, obviously, and yes, I am unbelievably exhausted. Heck of a weekend for yours truly, but yes,
You're good.
it was good.
Well, you had your birthday on Saturday too. Big birthday boy.
I did.
Turned what? 25?
4.
24. That's right. I
4.
keep forgetting how much younger you are than I am.
4. Let's make sure 4.
Yeah. So when do you consider yourself old?
Now.
What, so am I old?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes. Obviously.
Well, I don't necessarily appreciate that, but I guess we'll move on.
It's just the difference. And this is how I'm weird, and how my brain works is like the difference between 23 and 24 is the difference from being able to say I'm in my early 20s versus my mid 20s, and that makes me feel old.
So I'm 26. Am I in my mid 20s or my late 20s?
You're still in your mid 20s. Next year, you're in your
late 20s. Okay, yeah. Then I'll start having a. I did use the sentence with my sister today. Sam, we are both closer to our 30s than 20s at this point, and that I said it, and then I thought about it, like, oh no, I did not like that.
Yeah, man, closer to 30 than 20. Yeah,
that was not a fun. That was not a fun realization.
I'm not there yet, but soon.
Anyways, we're still very young, Scotty, and we still have a lot of potential left, just like the Red Wings do. Probably next year.
What a transition!
Because they did not show much of it this past weekend. They got outscored. So they played New York Rangers in New York on Saturday. They played the Panthers at home on Easter Sunday. Got outscored collectively in those two games 10-1. And the New York Rangers game was particularly brutal. Well, the Panthers game was pretty brutal too. They both, let's just face it. I'll just flat out state it, Scotty. There's no defense. There you go. There's the summarization.
Wow. Hot take.
I mean, it's the same, guys. It's the same problems we have. And we have talked about it, and we've said, we don't want to beat the same dead horse with this team, talking about every single loss. But at the same time, we're not doing our jobs unless we mention the reason why they lost. And, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but primarily is the team's inability to play defense. In that game against the Carolina Hurricanes, they won 3-0. The only reason they won 3-0 is because they scored more goals than they should have, according to expected goals, because Antti Ranta was not on his best game. And then Alex Nedeljkovic put up a 46-piece shutty, as Scotty Bentley said when he called it.
Big time, baby.
We talked about it that episode. They do not win that game without Alex Nedeljkovic. And we said that going into the weekend.
The defense was horrible.
It was horrible. They had 46 shots against. And we talked about the only way you beat New York, and then we forgot to preview the Panthers because we were so riding that high from the Rangers game. Or not the Rangers game, the Hurricanes game. We said it there. The only way you win these games from here on out, especially with how tough this schedule is phenomenal goaltending performances, because we know the defense isn't going to be that good. Thomas Greiss faced 37 shots. He made 33 saves. He let in 4, which isn't ideal, but he played strong in that game. Nedeljkovic last night, did not have his best performance in the world ever, but also he was hung out to dry so much. This is this team, and I recognize again that this is a rebuilding team, but when you're podcasters such as ourselves, it does get tiresome talking about the same problems night in, night out when the team is struggling. And the team has been struggling for 2 months, but again, we're not doing our job unless we talk about how bad the defense has been, and not just the defense, but the defensive side of the puck as a whole. The forwards aren't helping. Players aren't denying zone entries. When they establish the offensive zone, the other team the Red Wings they clutter up in the middle, and the Rangers, the Panthers, the Hurricanes even are able to just skate circles around the outside of the zone until they're able to find that pass to cut to the inside. I mean, this is just the Red Wings defense that we have right now, and I don't expect it to change for the rest of the season. So again, I recognize it's a rebuilding year, Scotty. As I continue to monologue here, I just realized how long I've been talking, and I'll get to you in a second, Scotty. But man, it's just there's really you have to talk about it, even though it gets tiresome to talk about because it is so prominent.
Yes. Yeah. No, like, look, man, we've reiterated a million times, and that's your point of your whole of that whole thing, right? Was like we can sit here and pretend like we have new problems every episode. We can be like, oh, well, the defense was weak and like this, and pretend like we didn't just say this for the last 40 games. Or we can just acknowledge, like, hey, the defense is garbage. It is horrid. It's not changing. That is the state of the defense and will be for the last 2 weeks of the season. And it has been for the last whatever, 75, 80, 77, however many games we've played. It's been like that all year. It's not changing. And like you said, we did talk about, for keys of the game, what do we need to be able to win? From here on out, the only thing that is really going to truly determine us winning or losing for the last whatever we have 6 games left in the season is goaltending. And not even goaltending in the sense of like, wow, our goaltending situation has been garbage and we really need somebody to step up. No, it's just the only time we're going to win is if a goalie goes supernova and just puts together like a masterful, one of the best performances in franchise history, like Ned did the other night. Like, that's what it's going to take at this point, because this defense is really laboring, really, really laboring. And like you said, it's not just the defenseman. It's the all 5 guys on the ice at pretty much all times.
And precisely to that point, even Larkin defensively has looked bad. I mean, you saw him get walked by Alexis Lafreniere in that game against the New York Rangers.
What a nasty goal that was.
It was sick. But no one on this team has figured out how to play defense, and it's really unfair of us, Scotty, as Red Wings fans or even as the teammates of these goaltenders, to go out there and say, hey, we need you to put up one of the best performances in franchise history if we want to even have an opportunity to win this hockey game. And I understand it's a rebuilding team, but I genuinely thought that the Red Wings were past this point. I thought that they were past being this bad. And we had 2/3 of a season to back that up. We had until at least mid-February to back up the fact that they were past this point. And so when they started playing poor, Scotty, I thought to myself, it's just a cold streak. They'll snap out of it. They'll get back to their, I wouldn't say winning ways, but competitive ways. And they just haven't. And it's a sad reality to face, but here I am facing the cold reality. And I understand, again, this was another rebuilding season, but you can have a rebuilding season where the team takes a step forward in that rebuild. And I guess overall, I think it still is. But this last month and a half since mid-February has definitely been discouraging on where I thought this team was in its rebuild. It's really made me realize, for better or for worse, quite how far away this team still is from being a truly playoff competitive hockey team.
Sure, I still are, and I've been very open about this the last, really since like the new calendar year, that I think this is still a very successful season for the Detroit Red Wings. I still stand by that, even with the last month. I still think the production that you have got from individual players like Larkin and like all the rookies, I mean, even like Fabry pre-injury, the trades you were able to make at the deadline, like there are still, I mean, Burt. There are still a lot of successful storylines. There's still a lot of success within this season. And I don't think anyone expected to, be in the playoffs or really. I don't think if you asked anybody on opening night if this team was going to finish over 500, very many people would have even told you yes. So I think our expectations were already pretty low. And I think going from, around that top 5 pick area that we've been at for the last several years and going into a, back part of a top 10 pick while getting huge, we're going to have a unanimous Calder winner most likely. We're going to have a 2 other guys finish in the top 5 in Calder. One of them we might even go 1-2. Like I still Larkin over a point a game, even with everything. I think most people can realize the defense was always going to be a little weak or shallow, I guess, at minimum. And this is still a big step in the right direction as a whole this season.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. It's really, when you're living in the moment and you're not looking at the big picture, it's really hard to be positive on this team. And I think, especially for the rookies, the length of the season is really getting to them. It's a long season. But you said something very important during your response there, and I want to talk about that. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Athletic Greens. Actually, first, I got to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. And also, this episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. It's a product that, guys, you're going to want to use literally every single day. So what is this stuff? You do? Tell I mean, I already knew that. I don't know why I responded with a question.
Like we've talked about this.
We've
on the
talked
show
about
before.
this. Go off, Scotty.
I love it. I love it. It's what, 75 vitamins and minerals that your body needs. It's like every single vitamin that your body needs on a daily basis, all in a. You just mix it up. It's 8 to 12 ounces of water. You just mix it in with cold water every morning, and you have it before you eat breakfast. And it's amazing. I have already re-upped they gave all the hosts a free kind of box so that we knew what we were advertising. I've already re-upped I went through my first month and have re-upped my thing, and I'm getting another shipment, and so that I can keep doing it because I stand by it at this point. I love it.
So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all the things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up with a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day. He created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create optimal nutrition routine on your own. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews recommended by professional athletes. Scotty, what professional athletes recommend this?
Yeah, Tarek Skubal has put it on his Instagram story a few times. I know that he's big into it, but yeah, there's several that do.
He just put himself together a good game the other night as well.
He did. Yeah, damn good game.
To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate nutritional insurance. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about these pair of losses, brutal losses. I mean, especially, I keep saying especially, both of them were brutal. Saturday's game was just because the team couldn't stay out of the box and they couldn't produce any offense. Sunday's game was they produced offense from the perspective is they got plenty of shots. They had over 30 shots in that game. But again, at the core of the issue is they just had no defense. I mean, the goals that the Panthers had were just like highlight reel goals. I mean, they had fourth liners just tearing them up. I mean, even Moritz Seider got a little bit. I wouldn't say he got embarrassed. He tied his man up nice. It was a nice drop pass, and then just made him move on to Nelkovic. They just tore up the Detroit Red Wings defense, and that's been the problem. I mean, one game was penalties, the other game was just the defense getting torn to shreds.
Yeah, and the offense doesn't. Hockey is a beautiful game because a lot of the defense that a team provides starts on the offensive end, almost all of it, right? That's just naturally the transition of hockey, offense to defense, defense to offense, etc. And so when you're consistently turning the puck over in your own zone and in the neutral zone all game long,
It's a huge problem.
like they did on Easter Sunday, not you don't have a good enough defense to be able to overcome constant turnovers and constant inability to clear the puck. And they were barely holding it together with bubble gum and glue sticks in the first period. And then by the second, it all just came crashing down.
You also really do not want to run into a team that's riding a 9-game winning streak like the Red Wings did with the Panthers, but that's they're one of the best teams in the league for a reason. So
Yes.
they are sick. One of the things that you brought up during your response in the first segment that I want to touch on is draft position. You were talking about that, and that is the silver lining to this weekend. I mean, we talked about it. We keep telling ourselves if they lose, it's whatever. But when they lose, and especially the way they have been losing, we still get frustrated because we don't mind, because we understand that it's another rebuild season, and we don't mind that losing this late in the season when you're out of the playoff odds is only gonna benefit you long term. But when they lose the way they do, it's still frustrating. But that silver lining is that with these two pairs of losses, the Buffalo Sabres have passed you in the standings. And so now the Red Wings sit 8th worst in the hockey league, which the blessing in disguise there is that they get an extra 0.5% on the in the lottery. They move up from 5.4% to 5.8%. And that's 25th in the league that they're rated. If they stay 25th or worse, they cannot fall out of the top 10 in the draft. So they are guaranteed a top 10 draft pick if they stay here or get worse. Just looking right now at the standings, the possibility of them getting to 7th is pretty slim because it's a 6-point difference between Ottawa and Detroit for 7th and 8th in the standings. So I don't see that happening. But if you can just stay at 8th, you're at least guaranteed a top 10 pick in this draft. And that, I won't say will make the struggles worth it for like us in the short term, but long term may pay off to a talented player in the years to come.
Sure. Look, I've been very open about the fact that I don't think that this team should be actively trying to lose for draft position anymore. But I'm not going to actively root against it either. You know what I mean? Like I don't think we should be going into every game like, hey, we really need to lose this now because at this point, it's not going to benefit. You know, you went up 0.5%. Like, okay, cool. The guaranteed top 10 thing is nice. It's a silver lining for sure. That is what it is. Like it's not something that I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I am not actively rooting for anymore. I'm done with the years of we need to lose as much as possible so that we can get good again. I think that we're on the upswing, but I'm not going to be mad at a higher draft position either if that is what ends up happening. So I'm like, cool, sure.
Yeah, and there are so many. I mean, this team's got plenty of holes, but mainly on defense. I know there's a lot of defensive prospects already on the way, and that prospects take a couple years to develop. So I'm not really sure off the top of my head where Steve Yzerman would go with another top 10 pick. But honestly, outside of goaltending, I mean, any pick at this point is going to be good. I mean, if they go to first overall, obviously Shane Wright's the answer, but even though you need defense, you just take that guy. So I'm okay with them moving up in the draft lottery, obviously, because that helps long term and rebuilding is so essential. And I have this gut feeling that Steve Yzerman doesn't even want to be. Hold on, I want to make sure I phrase this properly. I have this gut feeling that Steve Yzerman probably is okay with next year as well being a rebuild year, which is why he extended Blashill 2 years. And I say that because next year's draft is also stacked. I mean, this year you had Shane Wright, but next year you have Connor Bedard, who is arguably even better.
Bedard's
so
crazy,
I have been hearing whisperings that I kind of pushed out of the back of I pushed it out of my mind because I didn't want the team to be bad that long. But I understand the logic to intentionally making it so your team's in the top 10 for at least the next 2 years, this year being the year one of that next 2 years, just to get a chance as Shane Wright or Connor Bedard, because those two guys are going to take your team to the next level, get you that elite level talent, at least in theory. You never know how these players are going to get when they get to the NHL. And this team sorely lacks an elite talent. Dylan Larkin is as close as we have at the moment on the forward side of the puck, and he's damn good, and he's had a really successful season. He'll probably finish at or just below a point per game, which is fantastic. But there's still a difference between what Larkin is capable of doing and what, guys like Austin Matthews, Sidney Crosby, and Connor McDavid can do. Granted, Larkin plays a more complete game overall than Austin Matthews does, because Matthews just scores goals and Larkin can play both sides. But, I mean, if you score enough goals, eventually that doesn't really matter that much. I mean, the guy's set a franchise record, or was it league record for American goal scoring? It's incredible, but we don't got to get down that route. My point is this team still lacks that elite level talent, I feel. Dylan Larkin has the potential to be that elite level talent, but this team as a whole right now does not quite have it.
Correct. I don't think you play a season to get 1-1 in a league with a lottery, though.
Teams do.
Especially the fact
Red Wings did 2 years ago, I would argue.
No, correct. I agree with that. But what are you going to bench Mo and Larkin and Raymond all year? Like, you're not going to be 2 years from now, Bedard's draft year, you are not going to be bad enough. Even if you don't add to the defense at all over the next season and a half. Then you go into 2023, 2024 with still a very shallow and weak defense. That's going to be year 3 of Raymond and Sider. It's going to be late 20s Ned. It's going to be late 20s Larkin. You're going to have Fabry would still be under contract. Bertuzzi, like, you're not going to be you're going to tank another season for a 3.5% chance at Bedard.
I think a lot of NHL clubs look at it as worth it. I'm going to be completely honest. I think with the guy, when they see talent like that, people do it. And I'm not, and
I
also
agree with
we got to
that.
keep in mind
I just
too
don't
that
think as a team you're in a position or you're on a trajectory right now to be actually legitimately in the running for that.
But here's the thing: is like the team themselves isn't going to be the one tanking. Blashill's not going to actively.
No, for
Blashill
sure.
advocated to get Sider on the team last year because Sider was ready, and Yzerman.
Yeah, no,
these are reports, by the way.
Never
These are just reports. It's never got
confirmed.
confirmed. But Yzerman is the one who said no. It's up to Yzerman to decide that. And obviously, the plans can change on the fly. So if he feels like this team took enough of a step forward, he could buy in this offseason on becoming a competitive hockey team. But just based on this last 2 months, since mid-February, I have a feeling that Yzerman's long-term plan, from what reports have been given out, and from what I've been hearing, not that I'm like some inside source, but I'm starting to understand the things I've been hearing. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too pessimistic because overall the season was a success and it was a step forward. I'm just worried it wasn't as big of a step forward as I thought it was.
Right. Well, I guess my point is like how, like for Bedard's draft here, like how
top 10.
We're not going to take another step forward.
I don't know, man. This is where the fan in me,
like 16 make the playoffs and we're right like in the low 20s. Like it would take a pretty remarkable plateau of talent that a team that is widely rookies for that to plateau to a point where you're still like even remotely in the mix for a top 3 pick in that draft.
So, okay, I gotta stop. I will answer that question. But first, I got to talk to people today about betonline.net. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Also got to talk to you guys today about Built Bar. Guys, Puffs, try them if you haven't already. What are you doing? I've been talking to you about this for 2 months now. You got to try the Puffs. They're the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and that includes those puffs. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high carb, or high fiber, low carb. Misread that line. Don't want to do that. They have tons of flavors to choose from, including mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If they think of a flavor that might be good, they'll make it. It'll be delicious, and it will be good for you. So go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. I think I ended that wrong. But here we are. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I just read 2 ad reads. We were talking about tanking. What was your specific question? I wanted to answer it, but now I can't remember.
No, so just the last thing I said was that I don't think that this front office is planning on trying to get a good pick for the Bedard draft. I just don't. I don't see that as a reality. And my main point was that half the league makes the postseason, and
now I remember what I was going to say.
And half the league makes the postseason, and you're sitting at what, like 22 right now after the dreadful last 2 months that we have had. You're sitting at 22. You would to plan on that. You would expect no improvement from any of your 3 top 5 Calder finishing rookies, and Larkin to plateau, and Burt to plateau, and Fabry to plateau, and you are bringing in no help on the defensive side of the puck in each of the next 2 off seasons. It would take a remarkable, I've said the word a billion times, but it would take a remarkable plateau of talent and of production by a lot of players to seriously, actually be in the running for him.
So I want to preface what I'm about to say with this, and we've said it a million times, and we're both in agreement with this. We are both over tanking. This team has been so bad for so long that tanking is just, we hate it. But it is, to some degree, a necessary evil. And you made the point that, 16 teams out of the 32 in the league make the playoffs. But it's not set up and structured to be that way. In reality, only 3 teams in your division make the playoffs. And if you're lucky, you're one of the 2 wild card teams in your conference that are good enough. If you look at the problem is not the 16 teams, the 16 available spots, but the 3 spots in your division. The Red Wings division is just insanely competitive. You look at the point difference from 3rd overall or 4th place to 5th place, it's asinine. I mean, you got the Florida Panthers with 114 points. You got the Toronto Maple Leafs with 106. You got the Tampa Bay Lightning with 100. You have Boston Bruins with 97, who just clinched a wild card spot with 97. They're going to have a 100-point season and have clinched a wild card spot. They could end up taking a division spot, but they're at least a wild card spot. Then there's Buffalo, the 5th place team in the division now, having overtaken the Red Wings. They're at 69 points. There is a 30-point difference between 4th and 5th place in this division. And so when you put it in that frame, is any incremental changes you make to the roster, unless you go out there and make a big splash in free agency or trade value and trade market, going to be enough to propel you into competition with those 4 teams between this offseason and next offseason? I don't think there is. So when you look at it that way, and I know I'm backpedaling on some of the things I've said earlier this season, but this last 2 months have really changed my tune. I said it earlier in the episode. I've gone from thinking that this is just a cold streak to being, this team is worn out. And again, there are rookies and they're not used to the schedule. And you got Tyler Bertuzzi, a new dad, so I'm sure he's not getting a whole lot of sleep out there. But in the end, this team their competitiveness has fallen off. And so is incremental improvements you make in this offseason going to be enough to propel you into that top 4 in your division? I don't think it is. So I do think that maybe next year as well, I don't want to advocate tanking. I'm trying to stop myself before saying that. Fine. But I would understand if next year you try and fit yourself in that top or bottom 10, I guess, in the league.
Sure, and that's all fine. My point is just that with what percent chance do we have right now if the season ends today?
5.8% chance. And again, this argument does shift if they do jump up into the top 3. Now, I won't even say top 1. If they jump up into the top 3, that fast forwards a rebuild. And I would argue that their rebuild has been slowed down by the fact that they've fallen in every draft. Now, I'm very happy with the draft picks they've
very
gotten.
much agree with that.
I think Steve Eiserman's done a great job, and he might have taken Lucas Raymond at 2 or 3. I think at 1 you take Lafreniere, no matter who you are. At that time, not what we know now, not withholding, but I think that if you do manage to get a top 3 pick, that might change that tune for next season.
Sure. I completely agree with everything you just said there. My point is just that we have the 8th right now best odds in the draft today. Even if the season ends today and we lock up 8, we have the 8th best odds. Not even looking at our division, just looking at the entire landscape of the lottery teams. In the next 2 off seasons now, you do not plan to be that. Again, it would just take a remarkable lack of a step forward from Raymond and Sider and Larkin. I don't know if we're really expecting too many more steps forward at this point. I mean,
they're kind of in their prime,
right? He's about a point a game player now, but it would take him regressing a little bit. It would take no improvement from Moritz Seider or Raymond, which I don't think anybody feels as a actual thing that can happen. It would take I guess maybe it would take no step forward from Ned. It would take the same amount of production, and it would take you bringing in no one defensively. It would take none of your defensive prospects coming up and being productive between now and that draft. Like I making the playoffs, sure. Like that's if you think we're still a few years away from making the postseason because our division's hard, that's fine. And I don't think that's that hot of a take. I think we are in a very difficult division, but looking in draft position, I don't think you can possibly plan to be in a position where you have a legitimate shot at 1-1 in that draft. I don't think that's even remote. Like, you're gonna get better whether you like it or not, unless you move all of your top rookies. Like it's impossible to stop it at this point. You have 2 incredible young talents in your hands that are paired with a bunch of other young mid-20s or younger talent on your team. Like, I just don't think that's feasible to plan for that at this point.
And I agree with you. And I'm not saying definitively. I'm really just speaking off my feelings right now, really. I mean, because I'm not one of those guys who will go on the air or record an episode and give this is my definitive take on how I feel. Earlier in the season, like I said, I was all for make a splash this offseason, make this team better. Now with new evidence, I'm backing down on that. And that's okay. This is just, I recognize the options. And I think what you said is very valid, because I do think that it's going to be really hard, especially because these players are going to take a step forward. And your team this offseason is going to get better, especially if Simon Edvinsson arrives next season, if William Wallander arrives, if Pontus Andresen is going to arrive next season. I'm still hoping that's the right pronunciation on his name. Not completely sure still. I haven't heard anyone say it yet. But this team will continue to get better, and you don't want to be one of those teams that just middles because you don't want to make the playoffs yet, or you're not good enough to make the playoffs, but you're not bad enough. So at some point, you do have to make that decision to, okay, this is our core. We have to move forward, because you don't want to just tear it all back down again because the core is not good enough.
Right. And I would argue that by not improving at all between now and that draft, you would be middling, because you're going to lose out on the free agents that are only available for that off season and that free agency period. And you're gonna plan to try to get 1-1, and you're gonna get like the 12th pick.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be like, okay, well, now what? We just missed out on 1, possibly 2 free agency periods because we were planning for this draft. and now we're heading into year whatever 3-4 of Sider and Raymond, and we've given them no help their entire career, and Raymond and Larkin is now 30. Like
Yeah,
I think the time we talked about like the Pudge Rodriguez-esque signings or whatnot, like I think I think the time is now, and I'm not saying playoffs next season necessarily today because it's
but
hard to say
make a
that after the last 2 months. But I think you go in and you get help to take a step forward. Maybe you still have the 10th, 11th pick next season, and then the year after that you take your big jump. I don't know.
I keep thinking to myself, okay, so it's time, we got to wrap it up, or we're hitting our time limit. But then you say something, and I'm like, yes, that. And I think, and first of all, I want to say, I think there's definitely validity in both of our sides of the argument. And I think that where this team is at is a tough, it's a
It's
a
tough.
turning point.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
tough
definitely
decision.
a subjective philosophy. It's just a
Yes.
matter of which subjective philosophy Steve has.
And, our boy Jake Rivard was on this months ago with his article about the three different
Right.
directions to go, because it is tough. You could go different routes, but I do agree with your sentiment that, even if you want the team to not be a playoff team next year, there are ways you can still make the team better for the future this year and still not make a playoff team. You've used that pledge analogy before, and that's why I keep going back to John Klingberg. He's going to be a free agent this offseason with Dallas Stars. He's in his early 30s. He's in the prime of his career. He's a defenseman who you can bring in, immediately make a positive impact on that depleted defensive core. He's not going to be a game changer to the degree that you're going to make it become a playoff team, but he is going to provide a veteran presence that can also perform on the ice as a leader. So that's that. I think that there is a way to do a little bit of both. Have your cake and eat it too, but not also, screw yourself out of a potential lottery pick. But again, guys, I guess I'm going to throw it out to the people. What do you want to see the Red Wings do here? Because they're in a really interesting position where they're in the mix for a lottery pick, but they don't have great odds. Next year, in this offseason rather, what do you want to see them do? Do you want to see them buy in and try and become a competitive playoff team? Or do you want to see them, continue to basically make maybe a small step forward and hope for another lottery pick next year to maybe get Connor Bedard, who can really make a difference, but it would take another year of slogging? I want to know what you guys think, because honestly, I'm torn. I'll be honest with you guys. I am really torn on how I want to handle this, because I see validity to both sides. Everything Scotty says, I think, is completely true. But when I'm talking about, like, I don't think this team's ready for that, and division's tough, I mean, I can see also the validity in maybe waiting another year. So it's a tough decision to make. And I know I also promised we were going to talk about the SHL Rookie of the Year candidates.
Come back tomorrow.
But we ran out of time. And, that plays a role too. I mean, you got Simon Edvinsson and Pontus Andreasen. Spoiler alert, they're two of the three Rookie of the Year nominations in the SHL. We're going to talk about them tomorrow. And if they make the jump next year, that's going to be another thing that could take a huge impact on this team. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Scotty, any final thoughts?
I don't think so, man. We ball.
That was a great conversation. I just want to say
it was. No, that was
free.
like, Brian and I do a lot of like planning what we're going to talk about, and not like script, but like planning the conversation topic to at least start. You know what I mean? When we're going into every episode, and we try to have like, okay, we're going to recap this game. We're going to recap this game. We'll preview whatever. And this was definitely not on the docket. It was a nice little organic conversation that kind of.
I had like 10 tabs open. I had Evolving Hockey, Natural Stat Trick, and like ESPN and Hockey Reference. We were going to talk about a bunch of different stuff, deep dive these breakdowns, and we were just like, defense bad, snowballed from there. I mean, yeah, good episode. I pat ourselves on the back.
Yes.
Now absolutely. People think we're obnoxious, but they already knew that, and they listen to us anyways because we love you guys. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone help you become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I do hope that they refer to themselves as Steel in the Stone, because that would be sick.
That would be hard.
I hope they do that.
I like that.
Steel in the Stone. Anyways, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about those SHL prospects as well. Do a little bit of the game preview for you. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.